Today's video lesson is called Don't Be a Sucker. False promotions, salaries, and non-compete agreements. We're going to talk about these things today because they're subjects that are very important for any employee that may be looking at a promotion at work. Everybody wants to get promoted. Everybody wants higher pay. Well, maybe not everybody, but most people are looking for those things. And before you take any promotion, there's some really hard realities that we have to understand as an employee before we do anything as far as accepting a promotion. Now, first of all, I'm going to tell you right away that this lesson is given from the perspective of an employee. And I'm going to tell you why this video lesson is going to be done this way because, well, the reason is that I've never worked for a business or known of a business that really needs help acting in its own best interest. It seems to me that out there in the real world of employment, for the most part, employers are the ones that are really aggressive and really dominant as far as acting in their own best interest. But unfortunately, from what I've seen, employees aren't quite the same way most of the time. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to give employees more of an advantage at their job or their place of employment so that they get to win too. That's the purpose here. Now, before we go on any further, there's some ideas I kind of want you to think about and some truths that I'm going to talk about here. The first one is that the business, financial, and employment world is really all about people fighting each other for financial dominance. That's what it's really about in real life. We can try to look at it in a nicer way and make it flowery and nice, but it really isn't that way. That's really not what the business, financial, and employment world is all about. It's about people fighting for dominance, to win or to lose. That is pretty much the goal of the major players in the business and the financial world. And if you're not playing to win, you're not giving yourself every possible advantage. So think of everything in your life, every decision you make, as a decision that is going to work towards the end of you winning or you losing. It's one or the other. I'd like to try to convince people to stop thinking about success. Because a lot of times what many people, there's people that work in a lot of different fields and they appear to be very successful. They get a big paycheck every week or every 2 weeks. They live in a nice house, but they're really successful at being controlled by other people. And what I mean by that is they may have a lot of money or they may have a nice house, but they're not free. The course of their entire life is controlled by a major corporation or a big company. And if that company told them they had to move across the country to keep their job, they'd have to do it or they'd be out of a job. So don't look at people that appear to be successful as really being free or being the ones that are winning in their situation, because that is not reality at all. Remember, when you go out in the business financial world, you can only go out there for one thing, and that's to win. You're not there to be liked. You're there to win. You're not there to be everybody's friend. You're there to act in your best interest so you can have a good life. So remember that. Very important. I don't know about you, but for me, I've changed my actual definition of success. My definition of success today is that I work for other people and I put out the best work that I possibly can, but I'm winning too. Both people in any transaction in my life are winning, me and the other party. Just as I've said in other videos, relationships where one person is winning and the other is losing usually don't last. So we want to make sure, yes, we're good employees. Yes, we put out the best products we can for our customers, etc. But we have to make sure that we win too. That's really the point that I'm trying to get across here. Another thing you got to understand is that in any business, whether it's a large company, a small company, the only place of any real security is in executive management that has ownership in the company. Everybody else is investing in something they don't own. Now, it's true, business owners take enormous risks and work very, very hard to create businesses. And I believe they should make more money if they have successfully done that. I'm not against that. But what I'm saying is from your perspective as an employee, you have to remember that unless you own the company, you're really very limited as to what you can get there compared to the owners. Very important to remember that. Now, as I said before, duplicity or two sets of rules is the most common tactic in financially dominating others. What I should say is that the goal, like I said before, the goal is to financially dominate others. And the most common tactic in doing that is to have two sets of rules because it makes it very easy for one party to win and one party to lose. Just imagine if you have a Monopoly game. One person can have an unlimited amount of money, Monopoly money, all the time, and the other one can't. Well, guess who wins eventually? That's what I'm talking about here, is two sets of rules. So the way that one of the most common tactics that people use to financially dominate others is duplicity. And my definition of that is simply two sets of rules. And they disguise these two sets of rules, a lot of businesses, by complexity and distractions and a special vocabulary that's used to deceive you. And I don't want to pick on any one business, but most businesses use all this vocabulary. There are good employers out there. I'm not saying there isn't good employers, but we have to understand that pretty much everywhere we go, the business owners, they're out for themselves. They're not out for you. You have to understand that. They may give you things, they may do things for you, but it's not for you personally. It's because they are getting something out of it. Anybody that thinks anything different lives on another planet, because that's the way it is in the real world. So I'm going to give you the real life, real world definitions of promotions, which usually aren't promotions. Usually they're false promotions. They look like promotions or not, and they're not. The real world definition of salaries and the real world definition of non-compete agreements and what they really mean to you, the employee. Some hard, cold facts for us to think about, hard realities, but thinking about these hard realities and adjusting our strategy for them will help us to win. Now, most people think of all promotions as really being promotions. Well, actually, all promotions are not promotions, and unfortunately, most promotions out there in the business world, in any company, whether medium size or large, or even small ones, is not really a promotion. They're false promotions. I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you this. Most of the promotions, first of all, are from regular employee to mid-level management. Mid-level management is simply, to make a long story short, it's the most difficult management there is. There is no more difficult management than mid-level management, because you are, in essence, you're the shock absorber, the buffer between executive management with all their high, lofty goals and expectations and the ordinary people that work for the company. And you're the one that's supposed to take all these ordinary people and make them create these very, very high, lofty goals at the executive management, sometimes unrealistic goals that executive management is demanding. So back to our definition here, false promotions actually mean that you're going to be making a little bit more money, but you're going to have a whole lot more responsibility. Now, some people only look at the fact, well, I'm going to go from $30,000 a year as an employee to $45,000 or $50,000 a year as an entry-level, mid-level manager at this company. Well, that may be a fact, but the truth is that little bit of extra money, you may think it's a lot of money, but if your company's offering you a promotion to a management position, they're making a whole lot more money than we're thinking about. So you may be making another $15,000 or $20,000 a year. But think of it this way, and I'm just kind of pulling these numbers out of the air because they coincide with what I've seen in the real world. If you're making $30,000 at your job every day, as suppose you're a truck driver for your company, you're delivering mattresses or something, your company's actually making, as a result of your labor, they're taking in at least twice as much, if not 3 or 4 times as much money, sometimes more than that. But let's suppose that as a $30,000 delivery driver, as a result of your labor, your company's taking in $90,000. So you're only getting a third of that. Well, if you get stepped up to a manager, and this is a big mattress company, you get promoted to a manager and you're making $45,000 or $50,000, yeah, the fact is you might be making another $15,000, $20,000 a year. But the truth is that instead of being responsible for $90,000 worth of labor and transaction every year, you're responsible for $400,000 or $500,000 worth of business that the company does. So you're making a little bit more money, but the responsibility and the stress level will go up many, many more times, most of the time, for a mid-level manager. And it just, when you look at the reality of what you have to sacrifice in your life and the price that you pay, most of the time, from what I've seen, it just isn't worth it. Another thing to think about here is that, this goes for anybody, when you work for a company and you give your life to them, you're investing in them. You're investing your life in them. Our life is the most valuable thing that we have. Money doesn't mean much if we know we're going to die of some disease next month. It doesn't really mean anything. Your life is the most valuable thing you have. And when you invest your life in a business as an employee, that's exactly what you're investing, is your life. And when you take a promotion to mid-level management, you're actually investing more heavily in something that you don't own. All employees of companies are investing in something they don't own, but you're more heavily invested in it. So in order for you to get a return on your investment, you have to make an awful lot of money and get promoted usually to executive management, which most mid-level managers don't. Because the higher up you go, the less positions there are. It's just simple math. Only so many people are going to get up to executive management, and chances are in real life that most people will never get there. And again, executive management and ownership is really where all the perks and the really good stuff is for a company. So we have to remember we're investing our life, and the problem today is if we look at the big picture, a lot of the benefits of working a job and investing your life in something you don't own have been taken away, and there's no more pensions anymore. Inflation is worse than it used to be. You're working for dollars that are worth less and less all the time. And for me, I just decided that for me, a job was no longer a worthy place to put my time and effort. I'm just telling you the conclusion I finally came to in my decision making in my life. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just telling you what I came to is that for me, I'm going to invest in something that I own. Whether it succeeds or fails, that's what I'm going to do. All right, back to what we're talking about here. Now, for these false promotions that I'm talking about, here's what they use to lure you in, to kind of pull you into this. And the problem is most people can be susceptible to being tempted by these things. So they use these things to get you to take these positions, which are not really promotions. Well, they use your desire to feel important and feel powerful. Now, I don't know one person on planet Earth that doesn't have this desire. But the problem is that they're using these desires to lure you into a position where you're not really getting any more, you're giving a whole lot more. And they know that, so they use these things to lure you in order to get you to do something that may not be beneficial to you. They use your desire to look good. Now, if you see mid-level managers, now you get to wear a nice uniform with your name on it, and you get to talk to people on the phone, and people are looking for you, and you're dressed nice and you're clean and neat. You don't have to get dirty anymore, and people see that and they take it at face value. The problem with most mid-level management jobs is, well, yeah, you don't have to do physical labor anymore, or maybe a whole lot less, but the problem is the headaches involved, the mental stress, which is, from what I've seen, has been proven to be even more damaging to your body than physical stress. I've read articles where mental stress has been linked with every disease known to man, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, everything else, all aggravated by mental stress, and they're more aggravated, mental stress is more aggravating to these conditions than physical stress. If you think about it, a lot of people go to the gym and work out. So I don't think physical activity is bad for you, physical labor. I think it's the mental stress that's really causing the damage to our bodies all the time. And when you go from just a regular employee to mid-level management, I promise you, in 99.9% of the businesses out there, you will have more mental stress. And a lot of the times, you can't just leave it at work. There's things going on after you leave work. You're trying to enjoy yourself with your family. You're trying to go to your child's baseball game or go to a family function, and the cell phone's ringing and there's a problem. Well, I don't know about you, but my work is a means to an end. I work to live the rest of my life. I don't live to answer to a company or a corporation. That may be the goal of someone's life, but it's not going to be the goal of my life. So that's what they use to lure you into these false promotions. And a lot of the times what goes with these false promotions is the transition from a hourly wage to a salary. And a lot of people think that this is a really good thing. And just the word salary, no one says this and directly, but it's implied. When someone talks about an hourly employee as opposed to a salaried employee, people think they think of importance, and they think of somebody whose salaried is higher up and they're a key player and everything. Well, I would beg to differ, because it really doesn't mean that at all. When you look at the real sad reality of it, people in a salaried position can actually be worse off than somebody who's getting paid hourly. And let me explain why. If you get paid an hourly wage, your labor for your company is basically limited. Most companies only want you there 40 hours a week and no more. After that, you start getting expensive, so they don't want you there. That's a good thing for you, because if you want to make more money, you can actually work on something on your own on the side. So when you're hourly, you may not be making a whole lot of money, but you're paid a fair wage for your work, and you work your 40 hours and you go home usually, because they don't want to pay overtime. You get when you do more getting paid hourly, you get more. There's a link between more hours and higher pay. Now, when you go to a salary, the problem is that a salary is a fixed, limited pay that you're going to be getting paid, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is. But here's the problem. This is what no employer will tell you about a salary, but it's true every place that I've been. The pay is fixed and limited for unlimited amount of work. I'm going to say that again. The pay is fixed and limited for a practically unlimited amount of work. Now, that's a bad deal for the employee, and I'll explain why. Let's suppose that you go into an electronics store and you have $1,000 in your pocket. Well, let's make it an even bigger example. Let's make it $10,000 in your pocket. Now, that sounds like a lot of money. You walk into an electronics store and you say, okay, here I am with $10,000. I want you to give me an unlimited amount of merchandise out of this store for $10,000. Would the average business owner do that? And the answer is absolutely not. Not one electronics store that you would go into with $10,000 in your pocket and you ask them, if I give you $10,000, can I take as much as I want out of here? Not anyone in their right mind would do that, would they? It's just not going to happen. And we know that because it defies the laws of business sense and rationality. They would be absolutely foolish, because you could walk out of there with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of stuff. Makes sense, right? Well, when an employer pays you a salary, you're basically agreeing to do the same thing as what I just talked about. You're agreeing to it. In other words, we're going to pay you a fixed amount of money, but we have a right to demand unlimited amount of work. In other words, as long as it takes to make this place, as many hours as you have to work a week to make your job happen and make stuff happen, that's what you're going to do. That is not good business sense. And that's why, personally, I would never work for a salary, ever. Never have, and I don't think I ever will. So remember this. That's what a salary really means. Most people would be better off spending the extra hours that they would put in as a mid-level manager You'd be better off keeping your status as a regular employee and working on something outside of work that you own. That's my opinion. Especially in today's world. 30 years ago, it might have been a little bit different. But basically, to sum it all up, a salary in most cases, and if you're a business owner who's honest and treats your employees well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people who are dishonest. A salary is basically just a license, and unfortunately, it's a license given by us. If we agree to it, it's a license to abuse. How else do I put it? My father used to talk about this when I was a boy, and I never understood what he was talking about. But now, being in the business world for 30 years, now I understand what he's talking about. A salary is simply a license to abuse. That's what it is if you accept it in most cases. And again, if you're a company that's honest and decent, I'm not talking about you. But in most places, the hard reality is that this is the way it works. All right, and finally, we're going to talk about my real-world definition of what a non-compete agreement is. Now, some of you may know what a non-compete is, some don't. So I'm going to basically explain to you what it is based on what I've seen at places where I work. Now, we all understand employers and businesses, they have to act in their own self-interest in order to stay in business, and they have to be wise with resources and everything else. I understand that. One of the reasons why employers have non-compete agreements is because they don't want to invest 20 years in an employee and have them go work for their competitor. I kind of understand that. But at the same time, there's a lot of bad things that go with it for the employee. So let me just tell you what a non-compete agreement is, just in case somebody doesn't know. What a non-compete agreement is, it's actually a legal agreement between the employer and the employee, and it, just a side note, it's created by the employer. So guess whose best interest it's in? It's a legal agreement that's initiated by an employer, which basically says that we're going to hire you to work for us, or we're going to promote you into a management position. But if you decide to leave, you may not work for any company in the same business as we are within 100 miles for the period of 1 year or 2 years. That's basically what a non-compete agreement is. They don't want to invest a lot of money and you have jump ship and you go work for another company down the street. Now that's great for them, but it may not be great for us. Because really what it is, remember, the financial business world is all about competition for dominance. So really what it is, it's a way of the employer saying, we can do what we want to act in our own best interest. We can hire you, we can fire you, we can move you around in the company. But we don't want you, the employee, being able to do the same thing. In essence, that's what they're saying. And that goes back to the duplicity again. They want to play by one set of rules. They want to be able to do whatever they want. But they don't want you to be able to do whatever you want. Now, the free market system is a wonderful equalizer that rewards good and basically punishes evil just by being a free market system. Let me give you an example. If you work for a company and you are a mid-level manager and you've invested years of your life into this company, and at some point they start abusing you, treating you poorly, working you too hard, and not paying you enough, you have a right as an employee to go and work for another company in the same business because that is in your best interest. So you go and do that. Now there's consequences for them treating you poorly. You go to another company and get hired, and now you've acted in your best interest, and now, because they recognize that you were a good employee, they pay you well, treat you well, and put you right in that position right away, whereas the company that treated you poorly, there's a consequence there. They had somebody who was there for a long time, but they started abusing them, so the free market system just takes care of that. It punishes the bad and rewards the good if it's properly used. But by signing a non-compete agreement, what you're doing is you're giving up your freedom to act in your best interest. And that's why I personally would never, ever sign one of these things. So I hope that this video lesson was helpful to you in making your decisions about promotions, salaries, and non-compete agreements. I'm Michael Andrews, author of Keep More of Your Money. You can visit my website at www.keepmoremoneybook.com. And just a reminder, you can read ebooks on your smartphone, personal computer, or iPad using free reading apps from the seller. Or you can read them on your Kindle or Nook reader. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.